we're all feeling doubtful, but if you have a goal, you just have to go for it. Like, you can't let self-doubt or insecurity or low self-esteem stop you from going after what you want. And the only difference between those people who achieve their goals and those people who don't, people who are successful don't let those negative feelings stop them from going after their goals. Hello, welcome to my video. So I wanted to do a video about dealing with self-doubt and like feeling guilty or like feeling like you have imposter syndrome, especially during quarantine. Because am I the only one that feels like 2020 and now 2021 has been a mixture of like, because we're in quarantine and because we're in isolation, during our free time we should be productive all of the time, so then you kind of just feel guilty when you're not being productive. But then on the other side, being mentally exhausted by quarantine. So on one side it's like you feel mentally exhausted by what's going on and just being in quarantine and being in isolation, but then on the other side, during isolation and during quarantine, you just feel really guilty and you're like, why am I not being productive, and like just doubting yourself and feeling like an imposter. I feel like that sums up how I've been feeling 2020 and now especially 2021. That just really sums up how I've been feeling. So I just want to make a video on dealing with self-doubt and what I've learned on how to deal with self-doubt. So I think like with self-doubt and just in general with like any like negative emotions or feelings, you need to actually give yourself time to like sit with those feelings and acknowledge the fact, like acknowledge like what you're feeling instead of just trying to always be positive. I just feel as though if you constantly ignore like the way that you're feeling, it just compounds and eventually it gets to the point where you can't ignore it. You just have to acknowledge like, you know what, I don't feel that great right now, and just like acknowledge it and let it sit with you, because ignoring your feelings doesn't get you anywhere. But if you let it sit with you and feel it out, then you can finally move on. And even like with feeling lonely and sad, especially during quarantine, you should still let yourself feel the emotions rather than pushing it away, which is why I love meditation. Because one big thing that I've learned from meditation is that rather than like running away from your feelings, sit with your emotions, as hard as it may be, but just like sit still and acknowledge what you're feeling and just let it pass on. And instead of like internalizing the way that you feel, acknowledge it, look at it, observe it, and then just let it pass on. But like, you shouldn't internalize your negative feelings or your negative thoughts. The issue comes is like you feel lonely and then you internalize it and you're like, and you kind of like make inferences about your own personality and about who you are because you feel lonely. But instead just like acknowledge the feelings and let it pass on. Dealing with guilt and feeling like bad because you're not being productive all of the time, I think it's so important to put your life in context of what's going on and realize like the way that you're feeling could be a compound result of just everything that you've been experiencing. For example, when I just feel low, like I feel down, I always like to like objectively just look at my life and acknowledge like, okay, so you haven't been getting adequate sleep, you haven't been eating healthy, you haven't been meditating, like you haven't really been taking care of yourself, so obviously you're going to not feel your best. I think it's so important to find a balance between being too hard on yourself because you feel like you're being too lazy, but at the same time recognizing, like putting your life in context of everything and recognizing the current situation that you're in, and that the way that you feel and like your actions and everything is kind of a result of everything that you're experiencing or have experienced. But at the same time, like that shouldn't be an excuse for you not doing things. I don't know. That's like the current dilemma I'm in, is like feeling so guilty. Like I feel so guilty. Like I don't know why, but every single day I wake up feeling so guilty because I feel like I'm not being as productive as I should be. But at the same time, it's like we're in a global pandemic. Like, how productive can we be? Apparently I say like too much, and I'm trying my best not to say like so much in my videos, but it's really hard for me. So now regarding self-doubt and feeling like an imposter, I was listening to this guy yesterday talk about, he's pretty successful, and he was talking about how he feels like an imposter, how he has imposter syndrome, and how he doubts himself very often, but he's very successful. And just like listening to him talk about that and talk about how he's been dealing with imposter syndrome made me realize that imposter syndrome and like low self-esteem and all of that stuff, like being insecure, is something that everyone experiences. People who like are successful or like are like achieving all their goals, like the only difference is the fact that they don't stop. Like well, not everybody, but a lot of people do feel like an imposter, or like they have low self-esteem, or they're doubtful over like what they can actually achieve. The people who are successful don't let those negative feelings stop them from going after their goals. Listening to him talk about how he feels like an imposter was just so interesting, because I have also been feeling very doubtful about a lot of things in my life. But then hearing someone who is so successful talk about how he also feels doubtful about certain things, that just made me realize that everyone feels like self-doubt about certain things in their life. But then the only difference between those people who achieve their goals and those people who don't is the fact that people who achieve their goals, they feel, even though they feel like an imposter, they don't let that stop them from going after their goals. We're all feeling doubtful, but if you have a goal, you just have to go for it. Like, you can't let self-doubt or insecurity or low self-esteem stop you from going after what you want. Your feelings like shouldn't stop you. I think that's like the theme for 2021 is like, no matter what you feel, that shouldn't stop you from going after what you want to do. Because it's like, we're all out here experiencing the same things, successful or not. Like, everyone is feeling guilty or lonely or doubtful. Like, we're all feeling it. So acknowledge the feelings and just don't let that stop you. I think that's the theme for 2021. Anyways, that is all I have to say about this topic for now. If you're still watching, thank you so much. Bye.